Welcome back to the OTB podcast and the very first episode in our Rider Chat series. These are going to be semi-regular over the summer to keep all of you loyal fans entertained. We'll be chatting with a bunch of New Zealand's top racers, along with some legends of the past and even some figures behind the scenes. First up this week, we've got George Brannigan, who's just arrived home after what sounds like a very busy season, where he's dealt with a bunch of illness, and then an unfortunate broken collarbone to finish it up at the Red Bull Hardline. George has been around the scene for a while now, so it was great to get his take on how the 22 season went for him and has changed the United Ride team. Let's get on to the show.
Nice. Very nice. Front and back. Leader's garment. Quite happy.
It's alright, isn't it? Looks pretty good in that bad boy.
Excellent, I think the word you're looking for is... Look at that thing. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? Beautiful.
Now, only if you're ready for this.
All right, joining us here today, slow on the DMs but extremely fast on the track, George Brannigan. We've finally made it work. Welcome to the podcast, George.
Good to be here. It's actually been a long time since I've done a podcast. So keen to get amongst it again. And like you said, we made it work eventually. It was a few messages back and forth and a missed meeting yesterday. And
that's all right. We got there when it counted, and we're live now, so that's good.
Exactly.
We've made it work. So back in New Zealand now, back in Queenstown, I take it.
Yeah, back in Queenstown. So Queenstown is home for me now. I've been here for, I think this will be my 9th year now.
Shit, has it been that many years?
And yeah, I know.
Man, you're a local.
Still feels like pretty much a local, yeah, basically. I mean, I don't consider Hawke's Bay, where I'm from, to be home. And I go back, I sometimes say home, but then I'm like, it's becoming less and less like that. It's more like I go to Hawke's Bay to see family. I'm not
you
home.
Yes, you don't really have a base there anymore. So yeah, being in Queenstown for so many years, it would be the main spot.
Yeah, exactly. And all my mates from school have left Hawke's Bay and all that. So it's kind of just family. But it's nice. It's kind of nice to go and see family and disconnect, like, from, well, not like it's bad seeing mates, but like just disconnect from that and just see family. So it's like easy to fit in all that and just see family because my grandparents are there too.
Absolutely. And I mean, Queenstown's got to be a pretty good place to be based when you're a professional mountain biker with Skyline and Coronet Peak and plenty of stuff to ride. So I can think of worse places to be.
Oh yeah, I can think of a few.
Plus, you've got a bunch of other fast guys down there too, which would definitely be good to keep the speed up.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And just even like Groms, like there's so many fast people, especially if you go up Skyline, people that are decent riders but know the tracks well. So everyone's fast. It's good. It's kind of like a good environment to be around. And then with the other people who are racing, like Eddie and Cole and stuff and Walker, racing overseas, it's just good having them around. I might not ride with them all the time, but sometimes we'll just go up and do like a day of laps, or what we're trying to do more often now is setting up like timing poles and set out a track. And then do time lapse.
Have a mini race.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to do that more often, to be honest, this summer.
That's good for that's definitely a good one for pushing the speed up. Like I remember doing that just even on short stuff like years ago when I was racing, and man, you all of a sudden find these seconds that you just wouldn't have even thought of because you're actually timing every run. So definitely a good way to go.
Yeah, and it's just that mental thing of like being against the clock, and like when you get to the race, it's not unfamiliar. You're not like, oh my god, now I'm against the clock. Like you're just like, okay, done that.
You're used to pushing it. I guess for you still being, I mean, you're racing downhill obviously, and those guys are pretty much full time. And I mean, they still race a bit of downhill, but they're pretty much full time enduro. I guess that means you probably are on a bit of a different schedule to each other in that aspect.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely with the training, because they do just much longer rides. In terms of anything cardio, they're just going for like even up to like 4 hours on the bike sort of thing. So like for me, it's like 2 hours. As you know, it's like 2 hours, like a long ride sort of thing. So I'm just like, it's like sprints, decent hard ride, down laps, gym, just like the normal stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty different for those guys when they're out on a bike,
Mm.
all
Mm.
day and doing kind of multiple of what you're doing, I guess. So it's
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And you
kind
have
of
to like I done an EWS last year, my first one, and I knew roughly how it would be, but it was just good to like actually experience what it's like. Um, as in like you're just pedaling up a lot, and then when you're going down, it's not like there's no letting up. And my biggest surprise is how fast everyone is going. It's like a World Cup race, right?
oh,
Every stage, I was like, "What the hell?" I thought you were supposed to ride at like 90%, 85, something like that,
it's
and just
nuts.
be clean.
Not that I've
Yeah,
done one for a
no,
few years now, but I know like it's the same for me. And you kind of think that like, oh yeah, you just like sort of 80, 90%. You don't want to go like too extremely hard, but nah, it's full speed now, eh?
yeah, you're basically hanging it out. And like one of the funniest things, I remember. So Matt Walker was we were riding somewhere that was like off a walking trail and just like over some jaggedy rocks. This is back in Queenstown,
Yeah.
and it was like couldn't really ride it, but it was like this crest that came in before that was like with no rocks, and he was like, "This is the sort of thing you'd have in EWS. You come over that crest, see all the rocks that are pretty much unrideable, and just pinball through it because you don't know where you're going, and then like basically butt pucker and get through it, and then just be like, I would never do that again, sort of thing." And I remember having a moment like that in one of the stages, like in the race, and in my head as it was happening, I was just pinballing and just holding on for dear life, and I was like, "This is one of those moments."
You
It was
just
so gnarly.
you're just praying that you're gonna make it through it.
Yeah, literally, and I just made it through, but fuck, it's pretty scary.
I've got full respect for those guys too, because like
Mm.
they're pretty
No,
much doing
exactly.
one run on most of these tracks as well. Like one
Mm.
practice run is basically all you're getting, and the speed they're going
Yeah,
is insane. It was
yeah, and it's like a whole nother skill of like learning how to ride like that. Like I feel like I did a double header one in the tour
yeah,
last year, and from the first race 2 3 days whatever before that, before the second one, I feel like I progressed heaps and just learning how to ride the stages when you don't know where you're
yeah.
going.
It's wild. Like I remember hearing something from Jared Graves, and he was basically like, for practice when it's like that, he just goes as fast as he can, and he remembers the stuff that he fucked up, and everywhere else he just kind of
Pretty
forgets
much,
about.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like if there's a
exactly.
corner that he needs to remember, like that he's gone off in practice, that's all he want. Like that's all he kind of tries to remember. But yeah, it's pretty. That's a loose way of writing.
It's pretty gnarly, yeah. It's just like key points, like bits you fucked up or a sketchy part.
Yeah. Well, that's our how hard is EWS review done. Let's talk about you now. That's usually how this podcast goes. We get sidetracked pretty often, but
It's just normal, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. So 2022, you'd been on propane for 2 seasons, was it? Before this year? Or was it
Yeah,
three
I
even?
had been, yeah.
2 seasons.
No, it was
So
2020 and 2021.
that's right. So finished up with propane and joined
Hmm.
the United Ride NS team, which
Yeah.
so that was with Kaya Hearn. Was there anyone else
Hmm.
on the team with you?
Yeah, Vanessa, a girl from Slovakia.
Oh
She
yeah.
was first year junior. Um, she unfortunately broke her leg this year, kind of halfway through.
Ah, okay.
But
Bummer.
yeah, the three of us, yeah.
Yep. And then
And
so
Tracy Ann is still, she's a team manager and still rider at Crankworks,
yeah,
but
that was
nothing else in that.
that was going to be my next question because I was pretty sure she was involved still. Yeah, obviously we've
Mm,
seen her
yeah,
winning a fair bit at Crankworks, so she still is fair
she
hauling
still wins
ass.
them all. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just in Cairns at Crankworks last week, and yeah, she smashed that one. So she's
She
yeah,
goes so good.
she definitely
I
knows
think
how to ride still.
what is she? No, she didn't win the first one. Innsbruck, she was second, and then Whistler, she was first, and then first again.
Yeah, so
Almost at a
she's
three-peat.
smashing it. So she hasn't lost any speed, but that must have been kind of nice. Being on a fairly Oceania sort of base team.
It's been actually real awesome, and it's just like it's not a big team, but it's like a a good kind of group of people and people that know what they're doing. Like Tracy being a team manager is actually awesome because she understands everything of how it is as a rider, obviously, because she's done it for so long,
Yeah,
and she works bloody hard, so to like
yeah,
make everything work for us. So
yeah. So she'd be
it's
perfect
good and just
because
yeah,
she's
yeah, exactly.
so fresh from it, and she knows kind of what the demands are and what you need, and that you're not just like you get some people come in and they don't really understand it, and they might just think you're whining or
Mm,
whatever. But at least when it's you know someone that's been at the top, they know what it
yeah,
takes.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
then
That's good.
um, Fabian Cassini's he's still involved with
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's team owner.
Okay. So
Mm.
he's not on the road in that so much anymore, or
Mm, not all the time. Yeah, like half of the races I think this year, like
yeah.
roughly.
So
He was at
that's a good start as well. The team owner had been a former very fast World Cup racer too, so
exactly. Yeah,
that,
same thing again. Yeah, no, it's good.
that all leads to
No,
a
he
pretty good
understands it
setup.
all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome. So must have been a relatively easy adaptation to joining them then.
yeah, it worked out really well, and like right from like the get go of the new bike and everything, and just like products and like getting products, which was normally hard this time of year, but I still got it. So
Yeah,
like just yeah, everything just worked well. So I was pretty
nice.
stoked to be honest.
No, that's good. How was the adaptation from the propane to the NS? Was it much of a change or not too bad?
Quite different bikes, but the good thing the good thing with the NS is it's a simple bike, but like in a good way. Like as in they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Like
Yeah,
by going, there's like certain characteristics you want in a bike, as in like the amount of pedal kickback, the kind of leverage ratio, the progression, all sorts of stuff like that, and the angles. And nothing's like way out of those parameters. So
yeah,
like yeah, so yeah, it was just like it does everything well. So I was actually really stoked on that. And we got a new bike halfway through the season, which was like kind of the same, but it was a rear axle path
yeah.
version.
So it was a 6 bar, wasn't it? Rather than like the previous one was
Yeah,
like 4 bar style. So was that a
yeah.
big change going between those bikes, or was it still a pretty
Um,
similar feeling?
Similar because it's like the same frame apart from the chainstay,
Right.
um,
So you've
but
still
it's a
got all the
little bit
same kind of
slacker, a little bit
geometry and
lower,
everything, at least that way.
little slacker and lower because
Yeah.
the frame we had before was like a bit jimmied up to fit the mullet setup,
Ah, okay.
so it was a bit too high.
Yeah.
But I didn't even know until we got told no, to be honest, because I thought it actually rode bloody well and cornered good. But yeah, so the new one's a bit lower, a bit slacker, and a bit more active in the rear,
Yeah.
which is good. So
No, that's
yeah,
good.
no,
Sounds like
it's
you're on
rad.
a good bike then at least. So
Mm.
that's a pretty key. It's yeah, I mean
I'm
it's
actually
it's
really
funny
happy.
these days. Like I think it's pretty hard to get a really bad bike these days, but still it can play a pretty pivotal part if you're not comfortable with what you're on.
Yeah, exactly. I think you can definitely get like an average bike, but
Yeah,
then like on the World Cup, most bikes are like decent, but now it's getting to the point of like people's like good bikes are ones that have been just so refined from so much testing. So you see like the
yeah.
top teams like
I mean, you look at the
Provençal and
guys.
Specialized and stuff.
Yeah, you look at Specialized and like they've basically been on the same platform for a few years now, and Santa Cruz, and
Mm.
it's like sort of like if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing, and they're just kind of like small refinements that seem to be keeping them,
Yeah,
just making that time up when they need it.
yeah, exactly. Because I think it's at the point where kind of like motorbikes are like you're not going to go and like make a whole new system of how it works
No,
because kind of everything's been done within reason.
you can't radically reinvent them now.
Yeah, I mean maybe it'll happen at some point, but it doesn't seem
Yeah,
like it, to be
we
honest.
probably we probably thought that like 10 years ago, and things have changed a fair bit since then. So
Yeah,
yeah, who
true.
knows? Who knows
Can't
what'll
go over
happen?
that.
Maybe 24-inch wheels will come back somehow or something like that.
Yeah, something
Um,
else will come up.
so yeah, I mean, like we talked about the adaptation to the new bike, but obviously it you were pretty comfortable on it because your first race, I think it was your first race, was that national champs the first race on it, or did you do a national round beforehand? I can't remember
I
whether you were on it at
did
Coronet or
2
not.
national rounds. Yeah, I was on it at Coronet, but I got a flat tire.
That's
I
right.
like sliced on one that was pointing out of
Yeah,
the corner.
that was after you'd
So
qualified first as well, wasn't it? I think you were
yeah, I can't
qualified
remember.
first.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
How
you were
did it?
hauling ass
Yeah,
there.
I did. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I was gutted. I felt probably the best I'd ever felt at Coronet too, and I normally like that track, so I was pretty pissed off. But
yeah.
shit happens. And then I did Nelson,
That's
Karka.
right.
I hadn't been there for years actually. I just
The
remember I
track was
was thinking
exactly
of
the
it when I
same,
was
pretty
there.
much.
It's honestly, but even that like showed how long I hadn't been there because there was so much stuff. I was like, I don't even remember this section, and it's like a simple track that's been there for so long. I don't
Yeah.
can even tell you the last time I'd been there.
No,
Must have
there's
been like
definitely like
7, 8,
it's
9
same
years ago.
but there's a few little new bits that there would have been new little bits and pieces. But I think the biggest change is just
Yeah,
like now the trees have probably grown so much since you were there last that it's kind of changed in that aspect that like it's opened up so much more and
yeah,
but
yeah. I remember the first time I went there, it was like either there was no trees or they were like knee height or
they would have been
waist height or whatever. They're
yeah,
tiny.
they would have been pretty tiny. We built it in 2001 or two and it had just been planted so they were like seedlings back then and that's making me
Yeah,
really date myself because that's 20 years ago. Fuck.
that's a long time ago. 21
But
years ago.
that's yeah, that's another topic for something else. But yeah, so then you won national champs. So you obviously you know, got pretty
Mm,
comfortable on that bike pretty quick.
yeah. Yeah, I did quite a lot of testing as well in the off season, so that helped with that.
Yeah.
Um, the team's sponsored by ProFlow in Queenstown Suspension Go.
Oh, perfect.
Don't know if you know Paul, but anyway, so he runs it and he's worked with the team before in the past for quite a few years, and he's worked with the Suntour product. So we already kind of had he had a lot of understanding.
Yeah.
Um, so it was perfect. And then we had the new fork with the new EQ system, so like negative air,
Oh, yeah.
um, which before they had like a coil spring as a negative.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fork just works a hell of a lot better, I think, than previous ones. So good
Yeah,
timing for me.
the Suntour is probably pretty underrated, I think. Like after I remember talking to
Mm,
you sort of during the New Zealand season, you were, saying like, yeah, it's actually really, really good. It's like feeling pretty dialed.
yeah.
And I think most people would probably look at it just because it's basically doesn't have Fox or Rock Shock on it and go,
Mm.
like not sure, but yeah, obviously it's working pretty
Yeah,
well.
the amount of people that would be like, when I was signed, we were like, oh, like, how's the Suntour going to be? And like the Kenda tires and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And then I tried it. Firstly, I was like, I don't think it's going to be bad because Ryder's done really well on the team with that
Yeah.
stuff. And then first ride, I was like, fuck, it's pretty decent. But I knew we had still some work to do. So I was like, straight away, I was like, this is meant.
As long as you've got a good platform
Yeah.
you can work
Well,
with.
that's the
And then
thing, simple bike.
that's dialed having ProFlow in Queenstown as well. And you can just, make
Yeah.
changes and get it running good for the season.
It's literally a 5-minute drive from my house.
Yeah,
So
and how
it's
many,
like perfect.
literally every other season you would have just been riding stock suspension going, oh yeah, this seems to be working okay. Just turning some knobs and going into the season like that pretty
Pretty
much.
much. That's what it's like when you're on those bigger companies. I feel like RockShox is always a little bit easier to like kind of do your own work in the off season internally. But like Fox, unless you're like a top rider, they're kind of just like, oh, here's a click here and there, and like they do
Yeah,
nothing internally. But to be fair, they are pretty good out of the box. They've just been there for that long, and they've
yeah,
kind of like got them pretty dialed. But yeah, it was pretty much like everything stock. Like everyone apart from like top riders is all just like stock.
yeah. I mean that stuff's all pretty well dialed now that you kind of don't need to go too
Yeah.
crazy on it really.
Mm. Yeah, exactly.
So from there, um, was the first World Cup round your first race overseas, or did you do anything over there, kind of as a build-up, or?
Mm. We did a small French race. It was the Briod Cup. So Briod is
Yeah.
like where Amaury Perrion lives, and it's like his local track that him and mates built when they were little groms,
Oh yeah.
which was sick. It was like a minute and a half,
Yeah,
or minute 30, minute 40, like mint little fun. Just reminded me of like a New Zealand track, like a North Island one, just like pretty fast, kind of easy to ride, but flowy, and just made it
yeah.
fun because you're just like going fast straight away and just trying to go faster and faster.
I
It
do
was sick. Yeah,
remember
so did that.
seeing a helmet cam, which now that I think about it, could have even been yours. And yeah, it did look like a cool track, that one.
It was sick. Yeah, yeah. So we did that, and then did a little bit of testing again after, and then to the first World Cup in Lord.
And so didn't qualify there, but I think you had a crash
Mm.
in qualifying.
I was, yeah, I crashed and also was really sick.
Oh man, that's
So
brutal then.
oh, yeah, sickness has been my story of 2022.
Oh really? Man,
Yeah, it's
that's an
been horrible.
unfortunate one.
Yeah, it's not been much fun to be honest, but got through.
Yeah, made it through. So
Right.
I mean, how mentally tough was that starting the World Cup season, watching from the sidelines?
Mm. It sucked because I knew, yeah, it definitely sucked, and it was mainly because I knew like how good I was riding coming into the season. I felt
Yeah,
like the best I'd had literally in years, and then even at the Brielle Cup, like I think I would have been like on the pretty much the same second as like um who won it? Whoever won it, Loris.
yeah.
But I like made one big mistake in the middle because it had rained right before we
Yeah.
dropped.
A
And
super
then
short track too, so that's on pace when you're on there on the same
yeah,
second.
exactly. So I was like I was felt real good coming in, and
Mm.
then got like real sick. I was just like in bed and just pretty much fucked. And then crashed, and then I was just like, oh, it sucked because I just wanted to start the season well, and then I seem to often not start seasons well and then pick up as it goes. So it's like
You're
not
more of
not
a
this again.
steamroller. You're a diesel. You just gotta
Yeah, I'm
spool
a
up and
diesel
get
plugger.
going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had my fair share of non-qualifications, and I mean, I was
Suck.
nowhere
Yeah.
near as good of a rider as you, and I mean, they sucked for me. So yeah, starting the season like that would be a shit way to start it, I'm sure.
Mm, it was
So
painful.
then round two, you were 47th. Um,
Mm.
Obviously better than not
Sick again.
qualifying, but I'm sure it's still not where you were looking to be.
No, I was sick again there. So I flew
Mate,
over to.
need to get on the Immunifort.
Yeah, I was sick at 5 races this year. I ended up
Holy
at
shit.
the World Champs and World Cup finals. I had shingles for that whole time.
Oh boy,
But
man.
we'll get to
You've
that
got some
later.
immune stuff you need to work out, I think.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually seeing a sports doctor
Oh
soon.
yeah. Well, that's
I'm
good to
actually
hear.
going to be looking into it big time. Because I know my thyroid's not great. I'm on medication for that, but there's
Yeah.
got to be a bit more going on. But yeah, anyway, so flew to Fort William, um, and Kai, my teammate, had just flown from Aussie. We pick up the rental. We had like 4 or 5 days or whatever before everyone else arrived.
Yeah.
So we drive in this little rental car, and he turns up sick. We've got like a 2 or 3 hour drive, and then I was like, "Oh, this is not good." And he's like
You just know
literally
you're gonna be
sitting right
sitting in
next to
there.
me. Yeah, yeah. And I was just how it is when you're a bit tired from jet lag and all that. And I was like, "Please don't get sick, especially not coming into Fort William." Get to the apartment, like go to sleep. Sure enough, wake up the next day, and I just had the aches, and I was like, "Oh." So then, like coming into Fort William was just like probably the roughest I've ever seen Fort William, and it was like one of those rainy years,
Yeah.
huge holes, and I was like, literally like 4 times nearly blew my hand off in my race run. It was just I was like a passenger.
That's
It was not fun.
a brutal track at the best of times.
Mm.
Think I've raced there when I was sick once, and yeah, it was just terrible. It was not a good
Yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly. For like, it's not even just that it's physical. It's like you have to be like quite sharp because it's so kind of skatey and sketchy, but
And it's
fast. So
yeah, fast. Like
everything about it,
you're going really fast for most of the track,
you're flat out. Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you're
So not a good track to be sick.
nah, and then you're maxing heart rate for the last like 45 seconds or a minute of the track.
I felt like I was maxing heart rate by like a quarter of the way. Like, dying. I remember I got to, the Dare Gate
Yep.
and race day, it had just pissed down the night before and like all morning. And it was just, there was huge holes coming out and coming into the Dare Gate. There's like a little step and there was huge holes there. You go over the Dare Gate and then there was a massive hole into the left.
Into the left-hander
And they're
there.
all right at the point where you couldn't like miss them really. And I remember just hitting it and just like collapsing onto the bars, hitting my chest, and like the bars are turned like that, and I almost crashed. And I was just thinking to myself, I was like, I'm only halfway. And I was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't even like hold on by that point. It was a joke.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
know
was
what it.
exhausted.
I posted a little while ago from '09, and I blew a hand off the handlebars up a bit further up above that, right underneath the gondola. There's kind of like a drop
Oh
straight down
yeah,
into a right-hand turn,
those
and
like pyramid sort of like rocks over into the right hander.
yeah, and I blew my hand
Yeah,
off coming into there and went off that,
I
just
think I
going
saw
over the
that.
bars with no hands on the bars.
Oh
That was
man.
qualifying as well. So there was
What'd
a
you
yeah.
do? Did you just hit a hole randomly and just blow it straight
Yeah,
off?
something just like I think I hit a hole as I was coming in, and it just blew my right hand off from memory. Like probably about a meter away from the drop, and then it was all over, just cartwheeling
Oh
over it and down
man,
into the turn.
that is a terrible spot to do that.
Yes.
No
Man,
way.
I don't think I ever really had one good race at Fort William. I remember one year every spoke in my rear wheel was loose when I got onto the motorway in finals, so it was just like rear wheel was just flopping around everywhere, and yeah,
Oh
I
man.
had a terrible time at that place. It didn't go very well.
Fuck. Yeah,
But
it seems like this sort of track that like a lot of people have not had a good time at
yeah,
because it's just
ex-
so brutal.
except for Manar, who's won there like I
Except
don't
for
know
Mana, yeah.
7 times or something now. Somehow,
Yeah, and Amore, who seems
yeah,
to be
he
getting on
smashes it too.
that sort of level. Yeah.
So then next round was Andorra, was it? I think from there.
No, had where was it after there? We had Leo Gang and Lenzerheide, and we also had the Mega. So yeah, Leo Gang. I
I've
felt
missed
like
a
I was
few.
riding really good.
I've missed a few races out of my out of my notes here. I haven't done very well. That's all right. We'll carry on through it.
No, you're right. Um, but yeah. So Leo Gang was just classic. Um, Leo Gang with like showers and the weather and stuff. But
Yeah.
as you know, like the bottom woods, like the top bit will be decent and like drying and whatnot after some rain, but the woods at the bottom will just never dry. So that was just full bog and whatnot. And the last corner of the hard bit of the woods before you then pedal out and like jump that
Ah,
big
that
creek
big
gap.
gap.
Yeah, there was just like a big steppy sort of corner, and my front wheel just like kind of was just on the top of it and like slid over the corner, and like I kind of like hit this tree, like just hit the pad, just on my shoulder and like stopped,
Yeah.
which would have been fine. I would just like carried on and would have lost like a couple of seconds, few seconds. And but the problem was like it was so fucking muddy and slippery that my front wheel, when it went over the bank a little bit and I went into the tree, then it just pushed me down the bank a bit. And each step I tried to just get back on the track, I slipped down and down and
Uh,
down. And I was down there for I think like 15 seconds, and so
fuck.
I just yeah, didn't qualify.
Oh
And
man.
then it was after that Innsbruck Crankworks, and then I got probably the most sick I've been all year in terms of just like within a day. Just was in bed on quali day and like didn't do qualies. Was pretty
Man.
certain I wasn't going to race, and then I just jacked myself up on like 3 Red Bulls and 2 coffees and raced. And I probably should have just not. I was like, what's the point? But I still got 10th, but it was a bit shit. But then
Still would have got a little bit of cash out of it though in 10th.
I
Maybe
don't know if I did
$100 or something
anything
out of
for
it.
that.
Oh, maybe it goes back to eighth
Oh
or
no, I
something.
didn't for that. I think it does. Yeah, I got money for the
Oh,
slalom the couple of days before, a few days before.
close.
Yeah, that was. I was just like, there had been what, fourth race of the season. I've been sick 3 times.
Man,
I was
you
just
had a
like, what
rough
is
year. I didn't
going on?
realize how much you'd been sick.
Dude, it was ridiculous. I just catch something every time someone was sick, and Tracy was sick in our team. That's who I caught it from. It was just like anyone on our team. would be sick, and it's kind of happened a bit this year anyway,
Yeah,
as in like in general. Um, but yeah, I was the sort of person because of my immune system, I just catch anything anyone had.
yeah, brutal.
Yeah. And then what was it after that? We went to the Mega. So have you done the Mega?
No, it's funny. I was watching some. Oh, I mean, I'm a shocker. I watch all sorts of old mountain bike videos, but I was watching. I think it was one of the Earths, yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, and they had Mega on it, and I was
Yeah.
like, man, that would be a cool race to go do.
Dude, it's sick. And like, yeah, I used to watch those Earth videos and like you'd see the Mega, and I just didn't like think too much about it, or even like it just wasn't even like too much of a thought. I was like, oh yeah, it's a bit of a
Wasn't
like
on the radar.
interesting one event. Wasn't on the radar. I just didn't even think about it. And then when we like knew we were doing it this year, I was like kind of looking into it more, and I was like, this is gonna be hectic. And it was. It was
Yeah,
so gnarly. The first bit didn't have snow this year,
yeah,
where you like start, and there was like a patch of snow for about 30 meters, and you have qualifying, and there's like the start row, but like the guys who had like the best qualifying, even out of the front row, had the snow, which was like flat and just straight into the first bit, like where you wanted to be.
yeah.
And then I was like lined up, so it's flat, and then I was lined up on the bank next to it, and on the bank was all just rock off camber. So I was like, put me in the second row behind those guys in the snow at least. But
Yeah.
yeah, off the start, there was dudes like in the second row just passing straight away. I was like, this is shit. So I was like nearly 40th off the start.
Oh fuck. So you managed to get front row for qualifying,
Hmm.
but yeah, still just
Yeah.
got kind of stitched up from it.
Yeah, it was just like, obviously that's probably the way they do it every year, but when it's snowy, it's sweet. It's probably
Yeah,
like,
everyone's in the same boat then, I guess.
yeah, exactly. But we're just on
Is
like
there
loose
still like,
off camber rock.
like a few hundred people doing it? Is it still as big, do you reckon, as what it had been?
It's massive. Yeah, there was like, I think there's like, fuck, maybe even a couple of thousand or something. But like,
Holy shit.
you have like the main final, which was us on Sunday,
Yeah.
um, and then you have like a B. So there was like 300 and something, I think, or something like that, whatever. And then after that, there was like a B final, and then I feel like there's something else, and there's like there's a women's one, and there's an e-bike race. There's like the day before there was some other one. There must be like a good couple of thousand, few
Oh
thousand
man,
people.
that's wild. And how long
Yeah.
is like the actual final race? Like how long is that kind of stage? Like how long are you racing for?
46 minutes.
Holy shit. That is a
And
long time.
the thing I didn't understand was how physical it was, because there's heaps of like pedaling, like traversing sort of pedaling,
Yeah.
and then there's like a bunch of uphills and stuff, and there's one big uphill bit in the middle. But to make it even harder, because you're starting at like, I think it was like 3,500 meters or something, 3,700 maybe.
Oh yes, it's pretty up there.
Um, it's real high, so you feel the altitude big time. But the first bit, you ride down a bit of snow, and it's like sweet on the ski piece, and you can ride it. And then there was heaps of snow until this reservoir that was like on a flatter ski piece, but it was slushy. So
It's to be so
we had
boggy.
to get off our bikes. Oh, it wasn't boggy; it was just soft, so we had to run.
Oh
So
yeah.
we're like already exhausted by the time we got to the bit that goes into single track. And then yeah, it just goes on and on and on and on. And we only have one run down it, so we didn't know where to go. Kai, my teammate, did it, and he had his heart rate monitor on, and his average heart rate for 46 minutes was 179 average
It
heart
sounds
rate.
like racing cyclocross.
So yeah, would fully be like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
That was
assume they probably have the similar heart rate.
oh
Like 179 is like, as an average, is for that long, is so gnarly.
my average at cross national champs this year was 186, I think it was, for 45 minutes. I had maxed
What
at
are you doing to
197.
yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, it's so gnarly. Like,
It's brutal. Like
at
just
least
the getting
the
off and
mega's
running
fun.
would be so hard. Like I don't think that's one of the hardest
Yeah,
parts. Is just that change between like riding and then running, and
yeah.
that would be wild,
Because there's
especially running
like,
through snow.
Yeah, and especially when you get back on the bike, because it's like an effort each time you jump on the bike and make sure you get on the pedals straight away and like get your momentum going. Probably it'd be the same in cyclocross, wouldn't it, if it's
Yeah,
muddy?
that's yeah, it's wild. It sounds like one of those races that sounds awful, but I'm sure like once you've done it, you'd be like that was pretty fucking cool.
Literally was how it was. Like I didn't really want to do it. I was like, oh man, this is like also just because it was sketchy. It is actually a pretty sketchy event. Um, but then like after it, the first thought when I was like absolutely exhausted, I just lay on the ground for like 10 minutes and I was like, oh, I don't want to do that again. And then like you come around half an hour later, I was like, I definitely want to do that
Yeah, you're
again.
like that was fucking sick. I want to be back
Yeah,
next year.
exactly. Yeah, fully. Once you get your energy back a bit, you're like, oh, that was pretty sick. So I might do it. Yeah, well, I'm sure I'll do it again next year.
Yeah, midway through the race, you're questioning your decisions in life and why you're even there.
Well, I had one big crash and I was questioning it then.
That'd be rough. Full face helmets too. It's amazing, like
Mm,
how um, just like how stuffy you feel inside a full face when you're like maxing out like that as well. Like it's
yeah.
weird, but it's a totally different feeling. You just feel like you're real enclosed.
Yeah, almost like makes it, it's like you can't, well, I don't know if it would affect your breathing. I was going to say it feels like you can't breathe as well, but I don't think it would really affect it.
No, it probably wouldn't really. It'll be like
Yeah.
then like remember Crankworks and well COVID works in Rotorua last year and how in the shuttle we did either had to have a mask on or a full face helmet. I think
Oh, yeah,
that was the
that's
best.
true.
You're like, yeah, this full face helmet sure is definitely keeping all my germs in and keeping everyone else's out.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It was
There's so much of that stuff that's gone on through COVID where you're just like, what's the point?
yeah,
Or who
it's
made this rule?
I got to say it's quite nice to be able to just get in a plane now without a mask on. I'm
I
actually
know.
quite enjoying that.
I didn't even think about it until I was like towards the end of the trip flying back. I think I had to on the way there. When I was flying back, I was like, shit, I didn't even wear a mask. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's just the normal now, even long haul. It's
it's
awesome.
it's crazy how much it's just changed. Like I've been to Aussie a couple. Well, went to Germany earlier in the year, and it was like you had to wear a mask the whole way there, and it was awful. And then like just went to
Yeah,
Aussie last week, and it's like you don't have to wear a mask or anything at all anymore. It's just such a weird, like all of a sudden change.
it's funny how those things that are like seem like a luxury now, before COVID were just like the normal.
Yeah, yeah. It's just
They
turned
just
back around. It's bizarre.
yeah, now it seems like a luxury, but it's just like man, that's how it was.
It must have been a weird couple of years, like 2020, and I mean, especially
Mm,
2020 and 2021, being over there racing with all those,
yeah,
how restricted it was at that point.
yeah, it was like not that fun traveling and going to events compared to what it normally is because
Yeah,
like you just didn't really have the freedom and
couldn't
everyone
go
was
and
a bit
hang out with people,
uptight
and
and like yeah, you couldn't go hang out with people. Everyone was a bit uptight. It was like you didn't have the freedom. It just wasn't like a fun time outside of the racing.
yeah, not like it is like normally, kind of like hanging out and going riding and just doing,
Yeah,
kind of doing
exactly.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it was a bit
so
lame to be honest.
yeah, so I mean, the season wasn't all doom and gloom though. With the sickness and everything, I
Mhm.
see 16th at Val Nord. That's obviously I'd say that'd be your season highlight.
For sure, yeah. So that was like so well basically like the only good one really, apart from like some of the smaller races. But yeah, 16th, I was like stoked with that, not just because it was like a decent result, but it was because it was like after all the crap and like being sick so much, I'd had a
Yeah.
head knock from the mega that I was like I had to take a few. I was not right for Lenzide and I shouldn't have raced it, but
Ah,
I
okay.
had to
Yeah.
take a few days off after that coming into Andorra. So I just had so many bad races, and I was like, after Andorra doing that, I was stoked because it was like a big relief, and it was like, okay, finally, like speed's still there. I just need to not be sick
Yeah.
or concussed.
It gets tough, right? Like I could imagine you're probably getting to that point in the season going like, is this me? Like, is there something, or is this just a combination of shit luck or starts
Yeah,
getting pretty mentally taxing, I bet.
yeah, and it's often it's like that, but I still luckily deep down kind of knew like I'm still able to go fast. It was like because I you'd know how it is like in years past. You might even just after a couple of races start to think that, but even after like what 4 or 5 races of kind of sucking and stuff not working out, I knew deep down I could still ride fast. It was just like it was kind of things like out of my control, like being sick
Yeah.
and being concussed and stuff.
I guess it
I
wasn't
wasn't
like you were having clean runs and then not qualifying and being like,
as
what the fuck?
yeah,
Like you've actually got, illness and stuff going on. So
yeah, exactly. So I think that's why I was able to do that in Andorra.
yeah. So
So that
that's
was like that was a big relief.
yeah, that's a great result. I mean, being in the top 20 anytime, the way the field is these days, that obviously would have been probably a big relief, I bet.
Yeah, and that was yeah, not even just for the season, just like for my career. It was like man, like that's kind of the best result I've had in a few years because of all the I've had just a few crap years and some injuries and stuff. So I was pretty happy with that for sure. Yeah,
So are you're still with NS next year, United Ride?
I got a 2 year deal with them. Yeah.
Nice. That's good. It's
Mm.
funny, like I can see why, you know, places will do 1 year deals or whatever if they're not totally sure, but it's like, man, sometimes it takes a while to get everything comfortable and clicking. So it's like 2 years just makes so much sense.
For sure. Yeah, and it's like it's a pointlessly added pressure as well if it's a
Yeah,
1 year deal. I get
yeah,
it if it's like a young rider, like you're like I don't know how they're going to be. They haven't had enough years to like show if they can be consistent all the time or whatever. So yeah, I fully get that.
but yeah, at least
Otherwise, it's just a big investment.
yeah. And then like you sort of otherwise you're like halfway through the season going, are they going to sign me again? Should I be talking to other people? And then your mind's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
gone off on a tangent and you're not fully in
yeah,
it.
yeah. And if say for like a rider that has a 1 year deal, if they don't start the season well, just instantly adds more pressure
Yeah, massive
because
amounts
you're
of
like
pressure.
shit. Now I have to do well at the next race, and it doesn't go well, and you're like oh shit, and then the next one, the next one. So yeah,
It's
it's pretty gnarly.
yeah, it's not a good position to be in. Uh, so
No.
from there over to the US, knocked
Hmm.
yourself out in after qualifying, wasn't it? It was you'd qualified, I think, hadn't you,
No,
at snowshoe, or was pre-qualifying?
it was before qualifying. Yeah, it was it the Friday or it was the morning before qualifying, I think.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I just no, it was on practice day because it was only like my fourth run, um, and felt really good then because I've been sick so much, it had kind of taxed me like my body a
yeah,
lot during the season, and I felt like my health was like coming around again, and then so I felt real good, especially after Andorra coming into snowshoe. And then yeah, just over that just drop it just hung my back wheel up a bit and then just got
yes.
KO'd and
Seemed like you weren't the only one that got caught out on that this year. It
a lot of
looked
people did, yeah.
it looked pretty gnarly. I think like Brooke had a big one on there, and I definitely saw more than
Yeah,
just
true.
you two.
Yeah, there was like probably a dozen people that had pretty decent crashes on it, unfortunately.
So
Yeah.
so obviously set out that one, but then you
Mm.
did ride and qualify at Mont Saint Anne, but then decided not to race. Is that what happened there?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I like there's like a kind of like standard protocol of like when what some people say anyway of what you should do pre being post being knocked out.
Yeah,
Um, but like I talked to people like you and the Crankworks medical doctor,
yeah,
spoke to him a lot, and just like checked in each day and just how I was feeling and stuff, and kind of like in hindsight maybe just shouldn't have done it, but kind of skipped a couple of steps, as in like you have like a 7 day, do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and make sure there's no symptoms that arise each day until you can return to sport. So I maybe did a little bit too soon, and then I thought I felt I did feel good for everything apart from just that last like 5% you need of sharpness to go
Yeah.
fast, like you do at World Cup. And so I didn't feel spacey. I didn't feel like any symptoms really until yeah, trying to go fast on track, and I was like, I just don't feel 100%, and I don't want it to buy me. So yeah, I did qualifying and qualied, but I just set it out after.
Now that's commendable to to make that call, because I mean a lot of people when they've already qualified they'll be like, I'll just go race or whatever. But yeah, to make that call,
Yeah,
that's a big call to make, for yourself to go, nah, actually I'm not up for this.
yeah, exactly. And for two reasons, like I wanted to like, well, a few reasons actually. If I fell and hit my head, which could have happened, then that's when you mess yourself up for a lot longer.
Yeah,
Um, and the second reason mainly was like, if I'm not going to, well, probably not going to be like 100% myself and not do too well, then why not like sit it out and get good for Crankworks in the rest of the season?
yeah. Now
So that
that's
was my thinking, but then I kind of yeah, I still feel like I wasn't quite 100% in Crankworks either, but
yeah. I mean, I
you
haven't
never know.
had, I have, knock on wood, I haven't had any major head knocks. I've had one concussion. It was 2009 season, but it was like
Mm,
at that point in time, it was still in that time of, there wasn't a lot of knowledge, and it was just like,
for
okay.
sure, yeah.
And we left, like, there was a race in the US. We left there and went to
Mm,
France, I think, for a race, and it was like a race the next weekend, and you know, probably didn't do that well because of that. But yeah, you're just sort of like, oh yeah, okay, I'm back with it now. Well, let's go. But
yeah, and
it's,
you, even if it's just that last little percent, and you wouldn't even know, especially back then without the knowledge, you'd be like, if you didn't do it well at the race, you wouldn't think it's because of your head.
yeah, and that year I was obviously on a 1 year deal, so I was probably in the mindset of like, fuck, I've got to do every race and got to
Yeah.
do well. So it's like, wouldn't have been sitting one out anyway
Oh,
without that
yeah, that
knowledge.
sucks, eh? But it's good that a lot of riders now have come out with like saying they've got concussion, they're sitting out races
It's
because it kind of just like not sets the norm, but it like makes it okay for riders and teams to accept the riders sitting
yeah,
out.
it's
Otherwise, there's
definitely
like this pressure
it,
to race, and it's too risky.
it's definitely set a standard, I think, and this year has been more
Yeah.
noticeable by far. Like Tani
Mm.
sat out
Yeah.
quite a lot of the season for that exact reason, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, not even just for the riders to be like, I'm not comfortable. It's, at least hopefully it's kind of opening up. Like, I don't think there'd be too many team managers that would put the pressure on, but there definitely used to be. And I mean, maybe there still is some that would
Oh
be
yeah.
like, no, you've got to race. But at least now,
Yeah.
people are taking a stand instead of being like, look, this is, this is my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And not even like team managers saying you have to race. It's not like it's almost like it's maybe as bad when a rider's clearly been knocked out or like hit their head hard and they've got a concussion and a team manager don't take the initiative to be like you shouldn't ride, like you're not all good.
Yeah, bench
And
them.
maybe team managers or staff will now look and be like pull their rider and be like you shouldn't ride, because it's like when you're in a concussion sometimes you know it or sometimes you're like kind of not sure, but then when like in hindsight you look back and you're like yeah, I definitely wasn't right, because how you're feeling after is much better than you were when you're in it, even though you thought you were right. So
Yeah.
yeah, like you kind of can't really make the decision yourself as a rider.
No, especially, yeah, like if you've had a big one and you're just not fully, fully aware of actually how your body's reacted to it, then someone else probably does need to make that call for you.
Yeah, 100%, because you're like in a state of not being like fully sharp anyway, so how you're supposed to really pick those things up.
Yeah, it's always been a tough one, but yeah, for sure, it's definitely, I think a lot more people's eyes have been opened up with the whole concussion thing these days,
Mm,
which is good.
yeah,
Uh,
no, it's
So,
good.
so after that, like I said, you went to Whistler, 12th in the
Hmm.
downhill there, and then onto world champs. Um,
Yeah.
how many world champs do you reckon you've raced now? It must be maybe about
Um,
12. Was 2010? No, did you race
my
2009 in
first
Canberra?
one was, yeah, that was my first one,
So you'd be at
2009. So I was
you'd be at
first year
about
junior.
13, rough, well, probably 13 years, barring if
But
you've
I
missed
didn't
any.
race 2018. I was injured
Yeah,
um, before Worlds. Yeah, so I didn't race Worlds 2018. I think that's the only one I've missed. I
it's a,
might be wrong. I have to.
that's a
I
pretty
think
good
that's the
run.
only one. Yeah, it's quite a few.
Yeah, because I remember you had a pretty solid result at Mont Saint Anne as a junior, didn't you?
Mm.
Because that was my last one, and I remember you doing, was it maybe like a fourth or a fifth
I
there?
Yeah, I was fourth, but it was funny. I was running flats. That was the last time I raced with flats. So
Probably for good reason.
blew my yeah I blew my foot off in the rock garden, went over the bars and had a huge E. And I remember after that, especially because I saw the splits and everything, I was like, point fuck all off the winner. And I was like, I'm never racing flats again and threw them in the bin and never ran them again.
Yeah, probably a good call. Because I think
But
was
it
that
was a good call,
Brosnan that won that one?
yeah. Yeah, Brosnan won it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I remember. Yeah, you were
Yeah.
riding
And
good that year.
yeah, and the juniors had like stepped it up. The other guys had stepped up a lot at the last World Cup or last two World Cups coming into that. So I was
Yeah,
like, oh man. So yeah, had to step it up myself and
s-
almost did. Just stepped off.
nearly just stepped off over the bars instead.
Yeah. Oh,
Fucking
that
flat
sucked.
pedals, blowing feet everywhere since ages ago.
Yeah, honestly.
So
Yeah.
So you had world champs, 41st there, and then 39th at the finals in Val di Sole. So I mean,
Mhm.
at least you had a bit of a run of reasonable results to finish the season. Probably still not exactly where you wanted to be, but not not like
No,
you
it
weren't
definitely
qualifying
wasn't.
or anything.
That was at the so coming into Worlds, that's when I had shingles. Um and I was, if anyone doesn't know what shingles is, it's like a viral infection that it's like chicken pox, but in the adult version. I don't know if you know what it is, but
Did you have chicken pox when you were a kid? Because I've heard that like if you don't get
yeah,
chicken pox, then it's more likely that you'll get shingles or something. I'm no doctor, but
I'm pretty sure I did have chicken pox as a kid, but it's just from getting like when you get extremely run down and then shingles. Because I got real run down after Whistler, and I didn't go partying in Whistler. We went out once after the race,
sounds like your whole season
so
was
I
running
think I
you
was
down.
just like, yeah, I think by that point in the year, my body was just flogged from like being sick so much, plus all the travel. Because we only have 1 week off of racing all year, and then anyway, yeah. So I got shingles. Body was just like wrecked. Raced worlds, and I was just so not into it because I just had nothing in me. And then Val di Sole the week after that, I was kind of coming right, but I was still not full. I was definitely far from being fully energetic, and Val di Sole was like the roughest track I've ever ridden actually this year. It was like ridiculous,
Yeah,
and I was just a passenger by the bottom. And so that was kind of the same thing. I was like, man, I need to get through this and just
survival
reset,
mode.
dude. Yeah, like I tried everything, but I was just the body was just not there.
Had enough.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So then it was on to hardline, which
Mhm.
I mean that it looks fun, but it also looks terrifying. it's it looks like a real mix.
It is terrifying, but in a fun way. Exactly like you said. So I froth hardline. Like a lot of people don't want to go because they just don't want to do big kind of gnarly jumps. But
Yeah,
I don't know something about it. I just froth it. So I was real keen for it this year, and there was kind of a point where like my body, like at least after the shingles, I was felt like I got on top of it just in time for hardline, and so I felt good that week, and I was like frothing it, and then obviously got, as people saw, I got caught up by the wind and had a huge crash, probably the
that
biggest
was
crash I've ever had.
that was like some Mad Skills motocross kind of crash going on
Honestly,
there.
yeah,
When I watched it, I was like, it looks like he's gone for like Mad Skills, like he's gone slingshot off the
yeah.
landing. But that man, what a jump to drop and like that's a
Oh
long way for your
man,
front wheel to still be in the air to drop into the backside of that. Like, what a
yeah.
weird
So I
circumstance.
think it was like they said like 48 foot. off. So it's like the on off. The
Yeah.
gap from the table to the landing was like something like 48 foot.
And holy
It's a
shit.
big gap. So it
Yeah.
was worst case scenario for anyone listening that didn't see the video. So like if you see on my Instagram, if people ever go and watch that video of it and you have the sound up, you'll see I go off that step down around the berm, and as I'm going around the berm before the on off, you can hear the wind just gust and pick right up, and you can even see the plants just blowing
Oh,
around.
yeah.
And so it picks up as I'm going around that berm, but as I'm going around it, then you're below the level of the jump, so I wouldn't have felt it. I jumped
Yeah.
on, and as you like jump on your wheel, front wheels up naturally a little bit higher anyway, but the wind was so strong, picked it up, pulled it right up and across a bit. And I thought I was gonna. My first thought, I thought I was gonna loop off the back. That's how much it pulled up.
Holy
And I
shit.
was like, "Oh, this is not good." And then I was just trying everything to get it down, and I almost did. I swear I must have missed it by like a centimeter,
It looks
and
so
then just
close.
out the front door. Yeah, but I'm real lucky. I still cleared the landing, like the backside of
Yeah,
it.
if you'd gone into the backside, I saw
Oh
after that
man, I
they'd
hate
put
feet.
like a big inflatable in that gap.
Oh, it was in there.
Oh, was
It
it
had
in
been
there
there
when?
like yeah, while people have been practicing
Ah,
that
okay. I
on
hadn't
off.
noticed it earlier, and so I thought they must have maybe put it in there after you'd done that, but
Yeah, no, it was always in there, but I didn't really. I kind of
didn't
cleared it. Didn't really do
wouldn't have do
anything.
much.
Yeah, like in hindsight, I wish I'd like thought of just like grab a handful of back brake and just stop and then just off onto the airbag. But
Yeah. Yeah, you're
little
thinking
bit
though,
earlier.
it's always that split second decision of like, I'm pretty sure I can get this front wheel back down, but then before you, it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was just like I just didn't have time to react.
How how weird is it going? Like it's obviously it's not it's not like a free ride track, but the jumps are fucking massive. Like how
Yeah.
how hard is it to prepare yourself for a race run down that sort of track?
Well, so I this is the third time I've been, and I haven't raced it the last 2 years because last year my frame broke,
Oh
and
fuck.
then this year obviously, yeah, this year obviously I got injured.
Yeah.
Um, so the last time before that had been actually a few years prior in 2016,
Yeah, because it had a bit
and
of a
that
break
was
as well, didn't it? For a few
yeah,
years, I think.
exactly, and that was like earlier days. So back then it was more of like you had less practice too. So like by the time you'd got the jumps dialed and actually learned how to jump them, you hadn't learned anything else in between. So there was no like full practice laps down like there is now. So yeah, anyway, so back then it was more just doing a full run and linking it. You weren't
Yeah.
really racing it. Now dudes are racing it
Dude,
properly,
they are
sprinting
out of
and
the
everything.
start gate like it's a World Cup. I was watching
Yeah,
it
it's a
like,
proper race now.
yeah, I'm watching it like, holy shit, there is no holding back. Like it's not just, yeah, like you say, linking and a run together and getting down. It is full pace.
Yeah, exactly. And you definitely see it when some guys are kind of just racing, but more in a kind of in that mode of like just getting down.
Yeah,
Um, and that's probably why you see some massive time gaps because people are just like, I just want to get down, like have a fun run and like go kind of fast, but not like push the limits.
yeah.
And then you
You
see
could
the guys who are trying to do that, and then they'll just like trying to push the limits. I mean, and then there'll be like a 5 second gap from them to the next person.
you could definitely see that happening, and then like Jackson just destroying it, and it's like you see those dudes that are
Yeah,
actually, yeah, like they're treating it like a World Cup race run. They're not holding back.
yeah, and it was like the perfect event for Jackson actually.
Yeah, his jumping and skill and everything like that. He
Yeah,
tore it to shreds. I would have liked to have seen how
yeah.
Bernard would have gone. It was a pretty
Mm.
unfortunate crash, like right at the
I
very start, because obviously he's been pretty dominant there.
Yeah, I think it would have been pretty close to be honest. I reckon
Yeah,
like he could have still won. Because he was only Jackson's time. I think was a second or so faster than Bernard's quali, and it was drier.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think Bernard could have done it for sure, but it was just yeah. I think he wanted it pretty bad and just like sent it out the right out the gate,
wanted it a little bit too
and
much.
then yeah, sent himself out the gate. Yeah, wanted a bit too much.
Oh man, it's do you I mean, you've already said that like you love it and you froth on the event, but like, has it
Mm.
got too big? Do you think it got a little bit big this year, or do you think it's still like
Mm,
still pretty within the limits?
not really. Well, I don't know because those 90-foot jumps are like they're huge and like not, the videos didn't do them justice. I
Nah,
remember
like
standing on the lip and just being like, that landing is so far away.
when you
And you're
talk
like,
90 foot, that's a long fucking way.
yeah. And what was gnarlier was like no one had tested them out and none of us had jumped 90-foot gaps.
Nah.
So like that 90-foot was like to the knuckle. You don't want to land on the knuckle though. You want to like land pretty far past on the sweet spot. So we're probably landing like close. I think when we first had them was closer to 100 foot.
Far out.
So
That's a big jump. That's a
it's
long
huge,
way.
yeah. But then
And
at the same time,
that was the one that Bernard crashed on too, wasn't it? When he blew up a wheel on the landing.
he blew up on the second one of them.
Or
That's
was it the second one?
that's like 5 foot shorter, but
Okay, it's still
he probably
fucking
landed.
huge.
He probably still landed because he went so far down. Probably landed a good 100, 100 and
Holy
something foot.
shit, man.
It was so gnarly. I
That's
remember.
wild.
So when we first done those two 90-footers, there was only 4 of us up there, and Bernard was the first to do them both, and then we went straight after. And we're lined up at the 4 of us, we're up, or 3 of us, at the top of the run and where we would start for that. And we could see like he had jumped it, and we're just like, oh yeah, we're like sick. Thought he was going deeper, but he would have been fine. And then we just kind of see him just start ragging. And obviously, because we're so far away, we didn't hear the bang until he was halfway through the rank
Oh
of
yeah.
his wheel just imploding. And we're just like, they just looked at each other like silent. We're like, fuck, like, what do we do? And then we just rode down there. It was pretty scary.
Yeah, I bet. That would be yeah, not really knowing what's actually happened, but just looking at the size of the jump going, that can't be that good. He got pretty lucky, really.
Yeah, he did that. We got unlucky, but lucky that he ragged and rolled kind of in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Within reason, like best case for that jump, for that size of crash.
It for sure could have gone a lot worse.
Mm. Oh yeah.
So that was yeah, I mean that was pretty much, well, that was the end of the season. Broken collarbone. So you said earlier you had to have surgery on that. So you got that done in the UK while you were still there?
Yeah, in London. So Red Bull, being a Red Bull event, they put me in contact with one of the surgeons that they know, and yeah, got surgery through my insurance at a private hospital,
Perfect.
and like a good surgeon and all that. So yeah, it
Is
was
that
the two
just
reasons that I
blew it in
wanted
there as
to.
well?
Yeah, she had her surgery the day after. Sorry, the surgery after me.
Oh
So
yeah.
she was like in the same waiting room and everything.
Lined up.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. But yeah, we both got our collarbones fixed, and it was good because it's just straight into recovery then, and it wasn't like a case of like fly home with a broken collarbone and then try and like start the process with the
Yeah.
X-rays and referral and
And
insurance and the surgeon booking it and all that. And by that time, I think it would have been too late
yeah.
because you only have like a 2-week window,
Yeah.
from what I was told.
And by the time, I mean, it still wouldn't have been super comfortable, but at least flying home with it plated would have been a lot more comfortable than flying home with it in
It
pieces.
was, yeah, it was heaps better. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and even then, like, speaking of, like, getting it insured, I was thinking about it today. I was like, I bet you if I flew back to New Zealand and like having like the physio I have, they could have like pushed it through, but I don't know about fast enough. Like to get a surgery done so quick, you know, this in New Zealand
yeah,
has to be something like pretty major.
yeah, and
And I
you've got to
bet
know
you they would have just like,
you've got to know someone, you've got to know the right person to make it happen.
yeah, yeah, and like definitely my physio would have been like, no, this needs plating or whatever. But like anyone else would just look at a hospital and would be like, unless it's like fucking mangled and sticking out the skin, would be like, oh
Yeah,
no, that collarbone will heal. Would be like, no, it's gonna heal crap. Like that's
yeah,
why I was just like, I just wanted to get it done straight away in the UK, and then I can fly home with it healed.
the amount
the
of people
healing.
I know who have had bad collarbone experiences from that exactly, people just going,
Yeah.
doctors or whatever who aren't really aware of what they do and just being like, oh, yeah, you're into mountain biking. Oh, you'll be fine. It'll just heal up, and not really realizing
Mm,
the ramifications of, it healing badly
yeah.
or anything. Like I had a friend who's
Yeah, there fully would have been some.
I had a friend who's had healed like kind of offset, but when it had broken, it had like quite a point on it, and you could see the point
Mm.
sticking into the skin, like on his shoulder, and he couldn't
Oh,
he couldn't wear anything like he couldn't wear a roost guard or anything that sat over his shoulder because it would sit and push on that point and like just about make him physically ill. So it's like that was an
really?
yeah that was an example of a really badly dealt with one. I think he had, I think
Yeah.
later on they had to like kind of just re-break it and like plate it or something. Like it was a real shambles, his one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like that's how mine would have gone because it was like broken and overlapped. There was like pretty like aggressive bump just sticking out on the skin. And like also that means the shoulder's shorter too by like an inch or whatever it was.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like 100% mine needed surgery.
yeah. My left one is overlapped probably by about 20 millimeters, but it's sort of like
Fuck.
right down on the end near the joint, so it's like definitely shorter on this side, like
Yeah.
measuring across. But
Do
that
you
was
notice it or like can you
nah.
even see it?
Nah, you can't really. I can feel it because when my shoulder kind of if I push my shoulder forward, like the front of the kind of shoulder pushes in against where it's overlapped, but
Yeah.
you can't really see it unless you actually look super close. But then
Hmm.
I've had an AC separation on that shoulder as well, so it's all a bit of a mess on that one. It's and
Yeah, I
the
bet.
SC joint, the one on the inside, that one's
Yeah.
sticks out because I've torn that one. So my left shoulder's just taken a massive hiding over the years.
Yeah, I done my SC joint as well earlier in the year. Just like just a little tip off the bike.
That was
Um, so
that
there's a bit
was
going on this shoulder.
that was the worst one because I didn't really know what was wrong with it, and I kept trying to get the surgeon to like deal with it, and he just kept putting it off, and then I saw him like a few years later for something else, and he was looking at my notes, and he's like, "Oh, whatever happened with the SC joint?" And I'm like, "Nothing, because you wouldn't do anything." And he's like, "Oh yeah, they're terrible. I never want to touch them, so that's probably why I didn't do anything to it." I was like, "Okay, thanks, mate. Like, good job."
What? To be fair, I think they're real hard to fix well.
Yeah, I don't think they can fix them very well. So I think that was probably like fair enough. But yeah, I was still sort of like, you could have just told me that at the time.
Yeah, at least so you're not just like having false hope.
Yeah. But, well,
Oh, that's niggly.
that's pretty much 2022 in a George Brannigan nutshell. So well, good to hear
It
you're on
was
the mend. How?
eventful.
Yeah, I see you've been out for a ride today. Was that just a spin out on
Hmm.
the road or getting any?
Yeah, I just pedaled up Coronet and my mate, so pretty backwards, my mate picked me up at the top and drove me down.
Uphill shuttle run?
Yeah, which by now, like my physio was like, you can just roll down the road,
Yeah,
just slowly. But Jamie, as you know, Jamie Lyle
yeah.
he's sick at the moment, and he said he insisted that he comes and picks me up because he
He'll
wants
be
to
looking
get
out
out of
for
the
you.
house and do something.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, he was just bored, wanted to do something, and felt like he needed some fresh air. So fair enough. I was like,
Uh,
yeah, sweet.
Good call. So how many weeks are you post surgery now?
So
How many weeks since you had
my
surgery?
headphones just said
Uh,
battery low, so cut out there. What's that?
how many weeks are you out of surgery?
I think it's about 3.5 now.
Yeah. So you'll be getting pretty close to
Yeah.
kind of getting pretty back to
Um,
normal.
I think yeah, it's amazing like with a plate how quick he can just do everything. Like after 10 days I didn't wear a sling.
Yeah.
And even after like 5 days of wearing the sling, I was already just able to move it around so much that I felt like I didn't even need it. But anyway, 10 days I had it on and now it's been 3.5 and I'm like just in the shed, like there's a bunch of stuff I'm wanting to do to my van, like it's just putting in sound deadening and just
Yeah.
setting up some stuff as a campus and I'm just tinkering away like normal. So it's like it's mint and now I'm doing a bunch of rehab and riding. So I feel like I'll be able to get it back on the bike pretty quick.
Yeah. I guess it's pretty much. I mean, I guess since it's the end of the season, you don't really have a whole lot to
I'm
rush
not in a
for.
rush, no.
Just think
But
that
at least like
Camille
just to ride the trail bike.
just think that Camille was racing Val de Sol at this point in her recovery from her broken collarbone. Imagine how painful that would
Dude,
have been.
especially that track too.
Yeah. Good on her
That's
though.
oh,
She wrapped up. She got that overall title. Man, she couldn't have done anything better than that.
that
It was pretty
was that was
impressive.
pretty gutsy to do that. Like
Yeah.
going through that like same surgery,
Yeah.
and like just thinking about like in like 3 days. By now I'd be riding Val de Sol because it'd be practice day. I
Yeah.
can't imagine that.
Well, I think
Yeah, she.
I'm pretty sure Ryan Dungey he raced a Supercross 2 weeks after a collarbone surgery one year. Like I think he broke it one weekend, missed the
Really?
next weekend, and then raced again the weekend after that. Like,
I didn't know about that. I knew of Hurling's racing Lommel of all places, the
oh boy,
rough sand track,
yeah,
2.5 weeks after. I was there just by coincidence. A coincidence was the one I was going to watch, and I was there. And knowing it was 2.5 weeks after, and seeing how rough that track is in person, I was like, "How?
yeah.
Like, how
It's
did
funny
you?"
because the collarbone isn't overly functional for a whole lot, but man, it causes a lot of pain when it's when it's broken like that.
Yeah, because everything around it kind of moves, so it kind of just pulls on it, even just little bits
Yeah.
all the time.
When I did mine, I fractured it the first time, so I didn't break it the whole way
Mm.
through, and that was worse because it would like kind of try and open up, and
Oh,
then
true. Yeah.
I broke it, snapped it straight through the same place, like through the fracture 4 weeks to the day after I fractured it, because I started riding downhill again and went over the bars and just
Oh
snapped
no.
it straight through the same place. That
Did
was
it hurt after, like, once you got back on the downhill bike? Did it hurt to ride?
Nah, it wasn't too
Was
bad, but then it was once I'd broken it properly, it was way less painful than it had been when it just been fractured, which was weird, but was I think just
wonder if
because it
that's
was
also because of all like the nerves that have like kind of almost just like dealt with it. That like
mm,
once you've broken it again in that same place, are just like used to it and like almost become a bit numb.
yeah, it was just blown through by that point. So it was yeah,
I'd say
not
so.
much more you
Yeah.
could do to not much more you could really hurt it, I think.
I'd say so. Yeah. Like when I done my left one multiple times, the first break hurt big time,
Yeah.
and then the other times, I remember the second time I was like, oh, I don't know if it's broken, and like rolled down the track to the bottom. And then by the time I got to the bottom, I was like, yeah, I think it's broken. But like, yeah, it was nowhere near as painful as the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, weird old things. Oh, that's been
It is weird.
the Broken Collarbone podcast with George and Kieran.
Broken collarbone.
No, thanks for your
That's the
time.
mountain bike podcast.
It's
Yeah, no worries.
it's
Thanks
been
for having me, mate.
good to catch up on the season, and yeah,
Absolutely.
I guess you won't be at Crankworks Rotorua, or are you heading up there for any sort of reason?
Um,
Or?
I mean, I was going to go, but I don't think so unless my team want me to for some
Yeah, you're probably
sponsorship reasons. But
doing
I
a lot of
don't think
standing
so.
around otherwise.
Yeah, I'm not going to ride anyway.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. It's too rushed too early.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh well, I probably won't see you there,
Yeah.
but no doubt we'll catch up for sure over the summer at some races somewhere. I'm not too old to give it up
Definitely.
yet, so I'll still show up at some downhill races.
We got nationals at Coronet,
Oh, I
so
can't
that'll
wait.
be a goodie.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
get it
forward to that
nice.
one. It's always good.
Shit, yeah. Yeah, same.
Nice.
The
All right.
best.
Thanks again,
Nice,
George,
mate.
and take it easy.
Likewise, Kieran. Cheers, mate.
I'm ready. What's up?
I come from the land of down under. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. What was that? I can't hear you. I let it be like John Lennon, the anti-serum that you don't get for poisonous venom. Read the label carefully, I'm only here for the show. I love hip-hop too much to let you feed my ego. In the key of F-U-C-K, Y-O-U. I mean, why do I owe you if you're not helping me through? I mean, why do I owe you if you're obstructing my view? Success is not my castle, just a house that's brand new. You see, I irrigate the culture, give it shape like a sculpture. Still complicated, rock like I'm supposed to. B-L-I-T-Z like my DJ. Rock to the rhythm like you rock to what he plays.